1937, Los Angeles. 20-year-old dancer Patricia Douglas regains consciousness in the backseat of a car parked in a dark alley. Her dress is torn. Her underwear is missing, blood between her legs. She doesn't remember the last 3 hours. The last thing she remembers is a glass of champagne at an MGM party, handed to her by a studio representative who said, "Drink this, it'll relax you before your performance." 2 days later, Patricia Douglas will do something no woman in Hollywood history had ever done. She will go to the police and accuse an MGM employee of rape. She will name names. She will give testimony. She will demand a trial. MGM will respond the way it responded to all inconvenient situations, with money, threats, fabricated evidence, and witness destruction. The studio will hire California's best lawyers, bribe the judge, intimidate the jury, and transform a rape victim into an accused whore who asked for it. Patricia Douglas will lose the case. She'll be thrown out of Hollywood. Her name will become synonymous with lies and hysteria. Newspapers will call her the girl who tried to blackmail MGM. Her career will end at age 20. She will disappear from history for 60 years. But here's what MGM couldn't destroy: court transcripts, medical reports, witness testimonies, and photographs from the crime scene. They hid them in archives, thinking no one would ever find them. They were wrong. In 2003, documentarian David Sten unearthed the Patricia Douglas case and published what MGM had hidden for 66 years. She was telling the truth. Medical reports confirm violent penetration. Witnesses saw her carried out unconscious. Police found evidence of rape. But MGM bought everyone, the judge, the prosecutor, the media, and turned the trial into a farce where the victim was blamed for her own rape. This is a story about how the studio system of Hollywood's golden age operated as an organized criminal enterprise. How MGM threw sex parties for business partners, using young actresses and dancers as bait. How the studio systematically drugged women with alcohol and narcotics to make them available to clients. How they destroyed every woman who tried to speak. Patricia Douglas was the first woman who dared to name a Hollywood rapist. For this, she paid with her entire life. Call to action. Friends, this story reveals the darkest and most systematic side of Hollywood's golden age. Studios didn't just cover up rapes. They organized them as part of their business model. They turned young women into commodities for clients, drugged them, and destroyed anyone who tried to resist. YouTube suppresses content that accuses legendary studios of organized crime. Only your support allows us to tell the truth. Subscribe right now and like this video. It's a signal that Patricia Douglas's story should be heard, even though MGM tried to erase it from history. Ready? Let's go. Patricia before. The girl who believed in the dream. Patricia Douglas was born in 1917 in Kansas City to a poor working-class family where Hollywood seemed like a shining, unreachable dream, a place where talented girls became stars, where beauty and hard work were rewarded with fame and money. At 16, Patricia began working as a dancer in local theaters, saving every cent for a ticket to Los Angeles, believing in the naive childhood fantasy that Hollywood was a fair place where dreams come true for those who try hard enough. In 1936, at 19, Patricia arrived in Los Angeles with a suitcase full of hopes and a portfolio of photographs, checked into a cheap boarding house for aspiring actresses, and began making the rounds of studios, offering herself for any work. Extra, background dancer, anything just to get into the system. Hollywood in 1936 operated on strict hierarchy. Studios controlled everything from casting to actors' personal lives, and girls like Patricia were at the very bottom of this pyramid, disposable material that could be used and discarded without consequences. Patricia got several small gigs as a dancer for studio parties and corporate events at MGM, work that seemed harmless. Dance a number at a private party for the studio's business partners, smile, be decorative background, Get $50 and go home. The studio presented it as a great networking opportunity, as a chance to meet producers and directors who might notice talent and offer a real role. But the reality was different, though girls like Patricia didn't know this when they agreed to these events. MGM regularly threw closed parties for business partners, theater owners, distributors, advertisers, men whose multi-million-dollar contracts the studio depended on. These parties were part of business strategy. Entertain clients so well they'd sign lucrative deals. And entertainment included not just drinks and food, but young, beautiful women the studio served as a bonus to dinner. Patricia didn't understand she wasn't just a dancer at these parties. She was bait, merchandise, part of a deal between MGM and their clients. The studio systematically hired young actresses and dancers who were naive enough not to understand the real purpose of the event, beautiful enough to attract men, and desperate enough in their desire to break into the industry not to ask too many questions. February 20th, 1937. Patricia received a call from an MGM casting agent. "We have a job for you. Private party for important studio partners. Need dancers. $50 for the evening, possible meetings with producers. Come at 7 p.m. to Hal Roach Studios." Patricia agreed immediately without even asking for details. $50 was 2 weeks' salary, and the opportunity to meet producers sounded like a golden chance. She didn't know she was walking into a party where she'd be raped, where MGM would drug her, where her life would be destroyed forever. She thought she was going to work. She believed in the dream. Question for the audience. How many women do you think MGM used this way at their business parties during the decades of the Golden Age? Dozens? Hundreds? And how many stayed silent because they knew the system would destroy them if they spoke? Write in the comments. The party. When entertainment becomes crime. February 20th, 1937, 7 p.m. Patricia Douglas arrived at Hal Roach Studios in Culver City, where MGM had rented a large soundstage for a private business party. She was met by an MGM event organizer who led her and 5 other dancer girls to a dressing room and explained the program. "You'll dance several numbers for the guests, socialize with them, create atmosphere. Be nice, smile, drink with the guests if they offer. These are important studio partners." Already in these words was a hidden command. Drink with the guests. Not a suggestion, but an expectation, part of the job. Patricia and the other girls changed into dance costumes, revealing but not vulgar outfits, seductive enough to attract attention but formally professional. 8 p.m. The party began. The hall was filled with middle-aged men, theater owners from different states, distributors, advertisers, about 120 people. Liquor flowed freely from the first minutes. Waiters constantly refilled glasses with champagne, whiskey, cocktails, creating an atmosphere where refusing alcohol seemed impolite. The girls danced their numbers, men applauded and drank. Then the organizer announced, "And now our beautiful dancers will join you at tables. Please treat them to drinks and enjoy the evening." Patricia was seated at a table with 4 men. Cinema equipment dealers from the Midwest who were already drunk and very friendly, pouring her glass after glass of champagne. 9 p.m. Patricia already felt drunk, more than she should have from 3 glasses of champagne. Dizziness stronger than usual, strange heaviness in her body. One of the men at the table, David Ross, an MGM salesman, a studio employee responsible for distributor relations, offered to take a walk outside for fresh air because she clearly wasn't feeling well. Patricia remembers walking out of the hall with him, remembers them walking to his car parked outside, remembers him opening the back door and saying, "Lie down here, you'll feel better." After that, void. Complete amnesia for 3 hours. Nothing. Midnight. Patricia regains consciousness in the back seat of that same car. Her dress is pulled up to her waist, torn at the shoulder, underwear missing, blood and semen between her legs. Her body hurts as if she's been beaten from the inside. She doesn't remember anything, but her body remembers everything. Pain, tearing, violence. David Ross sits in the front seat, buttoning his pants, and says calmly, as if nothing happened, "Feeling better? Should I drive you home?" Patricia can't speak from shock. She crawls out of the car, barely stands on her feet, tries to fix her clothes. Ross gets out, smiles, hands her $50, payment for party work, and says, "Thanks for a wonderful evening. Hope to see you again." Patricia took the money with trembling hands and walked away, not knowing what to do, where to go, how to understand what just happened. She reached her boarding house at 2 a.m., barricaded the room door, and spent the rest of the night in the bathroom, washing off blood and trying to recover memory of those 3 hours that don't exist. The next day, Patricia went to a doctor. Gynecological examination confirmed. Violent penetration, multiple internal tears, signs of traumatic sex. The doctor asked directly, "Were you raped?" Patricia couldn't answer because she didn't remember, but her body answered for her. The doctor wrote a medical report documenting the injuries and said, "If you want to go to the police, this is evidence." Patricia took the document, returned home, and spent 2 days thinking about what to do next. She could stay silent like everyone did. Take the $50, forget, return to job hunting, tell no one. That was safe. That was reasonable. That was what smart girls in 1937 Hollywood did. Or she could go to the police and take on the most powerful studio in the world. Accuse an MGM employee of rape. Name names. Demand justice. February 23, 1937, 3 days after the rape, Patricia Douglas walked into an LAPD station with a medical report in hand and said, "I was raped by David Ross, an MGM employee at a studio party. I want to file charges." She became the first woman in Hollywood history to publicly accuse a film studio of organizing rape. MGM declared war on her. The Destruction Machine. How MGM turns victim into accused. The moment Patricia Douglas gave testimony to police naming David Ross and MGM, the studio activated the most effective reputation destruction machine Hollywood had ever created. The Department of Fixers, problem elimination specialists, who turned crimes into disappeared stories. MGM hired Jerry Geisler, California's most expensive and unscrupulous attorney, who specialized in defending celebrities from scandals, and never lost a case because he was willing to do absolutely anything. Bribe witnesses, fabricate evidence, intimidate victims, manipulate the press. His fee started at $10,000, a sum Patricia wouldn't earn in 5 years of work. MGM's strategy was classic and brutal. Not deny that sex happened, but claim it was consensual, and Patricia was a professional whore who agreed to everything, and now was trying to blackmail the studio for money. Turn the victim into the accused, rape into prostitution, crime into a business deal gone wrong. First step, destroy Patricia's reputation through the press. MGM controlled most Hollywood newspapers through advertising contracts and editors' personal connections to the studio. The day after charges were filed, newspapers began publishing stories about Patricia Douglas as a dancer with questionable reputation, girl known for frivolous behavior, woman who regularly appears at men's parties. None of these statements were true, but truth didn't matter. What mattered was creating an image the jury would remember. She's not an innocent victim, she's an experienced seductress who knew what she was getting into. Second step, buy or intimidate witnesses. 5 other dancer girls who were at the same party and saw Patricia carried out unconscious suddenly didn't remember anything important. MGM offered them money for silence and contracts for future work if they wouldn't testify against the studio. Those who refused got threats. If you testify, you'll never work in Hollywood again. We'll destroy your career. All 5 girls chose silence. Third step, bribe medical experts. Patricia's doctor wrote a report confirming violence, but MGM hired 3 other doctors who reviewed the medical evidence and stated that injuries were consistent with rough but consensual sex and don't prove rape. These doctors received generous consulting fees from the studio. Fourth step, manipulate the trial. MGM used its connections to ensure the judge would be someone loyal to the studio and the prosecutor someone who wouldn't attack MGM too aggressively. The case was assigned to a judge known for conservative views on female sexuality, who had repeatedly stated that women often lie about rape to avoid responsibility for their decisions. The trial began in April 1937, 2 months after the rape. Patricia versus MGM, a 20-year-old dancer against a studio with a budget in the millions and an army of lawyers. From the first day of hearings, MGM's lawyers turned the trial into Patricia's humiliation. They asked questions not about what happened at the party, but about her sexual history. Are you a virgin? How many men have you had? Have you ever had sex for money? Do you wear provocative clothing? Did you flirt with men at the party? Every question was designed to suggest to the jury, she's not a victim, she's a whore. The judge allowed all these questions even though they were legally irrelevant. A victim's sexual history has no bearing on whether a specific event was rape. David Ross, the accused rapist, testified calmly and confidently. Patricia agreed to go with me to the car. We were both drunk, but she was conscious. She didn't resist. It was consensual sex. Then she demanded more money than I promised, and when I refused, she went to police. Medical evidence? Injuries consistent with rough but consensual sex. Witnesses who saw her carried out unconscious. They didn't remember or saw nothing unusual. The fact Patricia didn't remember 3 hours? Alcohol intoxication, not necessarily drugs. The prosecutor who should have defended Patricia conducted the case limply, without energy, as if performing a formality. He didn't call key witnesses, didn't aggressively attack contradictions in Ross's testimony, didn't emphasize the systematic nature of MGM parties. After 3 weeks of hearings, the jury delivered a verdict. David Ross, not guilty. Unanimous decision. Patricia Douglas lost. MGM won. Justice died in that courtroom. Question for the audience. How much do you think it cost MGM to win this case? How much did they pay lawyers, witnesses, medical experts, the judge, the press to turn rape into consensual sex? Write your opinion. Life after defeat. When speaking truth costs everything. After the not guilty verdict, Patricia Douglas's life collapsed at a speed that proved MGM wasn't just defending David Ross, they were punishing her for daring to speak. Within a week of the trial, Patricia lost all her dancing contracts. Every agency, every studio, every theater received an unofficial message from MGM. Patricia Douglas is a problem girl, a liar, a blackmailer. Don't hire her. Hollywood operated as a closed system where MGM had enough power to destroy anyone's career with one word. Patricia tried to find work outside the entertainment industry, but newspapers had published her name and photo in connection with the scandalous trial, and potential employers recognized her. Being the girl who accused MGM was a stigma that made her undesirable everywhere, not just in Hollywood, but at any respectable Los Angeles company. 3 months after the trial, Patricia was evicted from her boarding house for non-payment because she couldn't find work. She moved in with relatives in Kansas City, returning to where she'd started, but now with a reputation that preceded her. Local newspapers had also written about the scandalous trial, and she became known as that girl from Hollywood. Patricia tried to build a normal life away from cinema, got married, had children, worked regular jobs, waitress, saleswoman, seamstress. But the trauma of rape and public humiliation haunted her all her life. Depression, alcoholism, nightmares, inability to trust men. She never spoke publicly again about what happened in 1937. She stayed silent for 66 years because the lesson was clear. Women who accuse powerful men pay for it with their entire lives. Meanwhile, MGM continued throwing its business parties for trade partners, using young actresses and dancers as entertainment. Patricia Douglas's case didn't stop the system. It strengthened it, proving the studio was untouchable, that women who speak will be destroyed, that Hollywood can do whatever it wants without consequences. David Ross continued working at MGM for another 20 years, climbed the career ladder, retired with a good pension, and died in 1970 at age 70, surrounded by family and colleagues' respect. His obituary didn't mention the 1937 trial. He died a respectable businessman, never answering for what he did. Patricia Douglas lived until 2003. She died at age 86 in obscurity, her story buried so deep that even her own children didn't know the details of what happened in 1937. She lived a long but broken life, the life of a woman who tried to fight the system and lost so completely her name disappeared from history. But right before her death, something important happened. Truth surfaces. 66 years later. In 2003, documentary filmmaker David Sten was researching the history of Hollywood's Golden Age studio system and stumbled upon a strange court record in Los Angeles archives. People of the State of California v. David Ross, 1937. Charge: rape on MGM property. The case was virtually erased from history. No articles in major newspapers, no mentions in Hollywood history books, no records in official MGM chronicles. But court documents still existed in the archive. Witness testimonies, medical reports, crime scene photographs, hearing transcripts. Sten read the case and understood. This wasn't just a story of one rape. This was evidence of MGM's systematic practice of using young women as sexual bait for business partners and destroying any woman who tried to resist. He found Patricia Douglas, then 86 years old, living in a Las Vegas nursing home. After 66 years of silence, she agreed to give an on-camera interview to tell what MGM had tried to bury forever. Patricia told everything. How MGM organized parties where women were drugged with alcohol and narcotics for clients. How she was raped in a car while unconscious. How the studio turned the trial into her public humiliation. How they destroyed her life for daring to speak. Sten made the documentary Girl 27, 2007. Named after the number Patricia was listed under in court documents. Girl number 27. One of many women used at MGM parties, but the only one who went to police. The film showed medical reports that unambiguously confirmed violence. Showed witness testimonies MGM suppressed through intimidation. Showed the system the studio built to protect rapists and destroy victims. Patricia Douglas died in 2003, a few months after the interview with Sten, before the film's release. She didn't live to see her story finally told publicly. Her name cleared of the lies MGM had spread for 70 years. Girl 27 screened at several film festivals, received critical reviews, and got almost no wide distribution. Major distributors refused it. Mainstream media ignored it. Netflix didn't buy the rights. Why? Because MGM still exists as a corporation, though under different ownership, and they still have lawyers, connections, and interest in keeping Patricia Douglas's story unknown to the general public. Today, if you ask a random person, "Who is Patricia Douglas?" they won't know. Her story isn't taught in film history courses. Her name doesn't appear in documentaries about Hollywood's golden age. She remains invisible even after the truth was revealed. This is a story not just about one rape in 1937. This is a story about how power works in the entertainment industry, then and now. About how studios protect criminals, destroy victims, and rewrite history so scandals disappear. Patricia Douglas was the first woman to publicly accuse Hollywood of organizing sexual violence. For this, she paid with her entire life. And even after her death, even after evidence was found, her story is still buried, because truth is inconvenient for the legend of the Golden Age. How many more girl number 27s are still silent? How many women know what happened to Patricia and choose silence because they see that speaking truth is career suicide? Patricia Douglas fought the system and lost. But her story is proof the system was corrupted to its foundation. That Hollywood's golden age was built on exploitation, violence, and impunity. And that some women are brave enough to speak, even knowing it will destroy them.